Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really cool, a way to teach that throws out the boring old lectures and brings in quests, puzzles, and full-blown adventures. I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? For anyone who's ever taught something or tried to learn something. We've all been in that classroom where the information just goes in one ear and out the other. So how do you actually create an experience that makes knowledge stick for good? Well, what if you just turn the entire lesson into a game? That's exactly the idea behind educational escape games. You basically transform a classroom into this collaborative adventure where students have to work together, solve puzzles, and achieve a common goal. Learning becomes something you do, not just something you listen to.
But how do you even start to build something like that? Especially if you don't have a huge budget for fancy tech. Turns out, there's a really clever system for it, and it's called the EscapeIF framework.
So what is EscapeIF exactly? It's a game design system created by Dr. Scott Nicholson, and it's made specifically for places like schools. The absolute genius of it is that it's all about storytelling, not expensive props. It gives you a blueprint to build these amazing, immersive games with stuff you probably already have. At its heart, EscapeIF is built on a classic three-act story structure. Act 1, that's where you set the scene. Players figure out who they are, what the world is like, and what problem they need to solve. Then, boom, Act 2 hits them with a twist. Something totally unexpected that makes them have to stop and think. This is where the deep learning really kicks in. And finally, you get to Act 3, the big finale, where they have to pull together everything they've learned to crack that last puzzle. Okay, so the theory sounds great. But let's see how it actually works in a real classroom. We're going to take a look at a pilot study for a game called Quest for the Chalice, which was designed for a university course. So picture this. The game was made for a group of future teachers studying digital literacy. And the story is just fantastic and fun. A bunch of mischievous monkeys have swiped the chalice of wisdom. The players, they're brand new teachers. And their mission is to team up, solve a bunch of puzzles, and get that chalice back. All right, let's really break this down. This chart here maps out the entire game, and you can see exactly how they used that EscapeIF structure. In Act 1, the conflict, players had to solve a pretty basic cipher just to learn about choosing the right tech. Think of it as their intro mission. But then came Act 2, the twist. A wise old owl shows up and introduces a more complex idea called the Triple E framework. That's all about how technology can enhance, extend, and engage learning. Then for Act 3, the grand finale, they had to actually use that Triple E framework to solve the final puzzles and find the chalice. You can see how each act is designed to teach a specific lesson, embedding it right into the story. It's so smart. Of course, no game is ever perfect on the first try. That's why this pilot study was so important. It gave the designers a ton of insight into what was working and, maybe more importantly, what wasn't. The players themselves basically handed them the blueprint for version 2.0. And this quote from one of the players really says it all. Reading the instruction very quickly, but I didn't understand specifically. It perfectly captures the #1 issue they found. Even though there are videos and written instructions, things just weren't clicking right away for some people, and it led to some early confusion. So all that player feedback kind of boiled down into 4 main categories. First, clarity. The instructions needed to be clearer, especially right at the beginning. Second, the puzzles were a little unbalanced. Some were way too easy, and others were stumpers. Third, people would get so deep into solving one little puzzle that they'd forget the big picture, the main goal of the quest. And lastly, they wanted more immersion. A few small touches to make the whole thing feel more like a real adventure. So what do you do with all that feedback? Well, you turn it into a to-do list. And the best part is, the players didn't just point out problems. They had some amazing, totally doable ideas for how to fix them. And here are those fixes. For clarity, they suggested, hey, after the video, just do a quick, real-life demo of the task. Simple. For the visual aids, they recommended easy tweaks like bigger fonts and bolding the important keywords. To help everyone remember the mission, they suggested little reminders between puzzles. And for immersion, something as simple as dimming the classroom lights could make a world of difference. So, what's the bottom line here? Even with those areas to improve, this pilot was a huge win. The game was super engaging. It got students working together and solving problems. And, this is the most important part, it actually helped them understand that core academic idea, the Triple E framework. The students themselves called the whole experience interesting and profitable. That tells you everything you need to know. It just goes to show you the power of using a good story and fun game mechanics to teach pretty complex stuff. It proves that if you have a solid framework and you actually listen to your players, you can create some seriously powerful learning experiences. So that leaves me with one last question for you to think about. What lesson would you turn into an adventure?